Hey there, and thank you for joining the No Grow Scale podcast today, where we talk all things MSP growth. We have a very special guest today who knows a lot about MSP growth because he came from an MSP, but kind of has a different path that he's taken now. So Aaron Garcia out of the Dallas, Texas area, met him, was it 2 years ago, maybe? A year and a half, 2 years ago?
Almost 2 years ago.
Through a mutual friend of ours. Aaron, thank you for joining today. I'm really excited to talk about what I kind of talk about in bits and pieces a lot on podcasts and webinars all the time, but really excited to dig in about how you help MSPs solve some of their most challenging problems. So really excited to get started. Do you mind just introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your history?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure chatting with you always. So, like she said, my name is Aaron Garcia. I also will answer to Aaron, which is the name I've been given for 10 years now. But yeah, like she said, I've been in the IT world for 20 plus years. 17 of those years in the MSP space, so very familiar with all things MSP. Was there when Zenith Infotech, if those people that remember Zenith Infotech were around, helped with those solutions and softwares, backup solutions, all the stuff that goes with it. So I've seen a lot in 17 years. And most recently, I was with the company for about 11 and a half years. And in my time there as a COO and the integrator for the company.
Yeah, an integrator is kind of this internal language that we're going to have to get to in just a second. And then, career-wise, you've recently made a shift. So talk about that a little bit and the reason behind that.
Yeah, so in my last MSP, I was introduced to a book called Get a Grip. So it's one of the books in the EOS library. And the buddy of mine actually was another MSP. And so he said, you should read this. And of course, like most books, I put on the shelf and thought I'll read it at some point. Well, he was good enough to follow up with me about a week later and said, hey, have you got a chance to read the book? And I said, no, I haven't. So sorry. He's like, well, I'm going to call you again next week. Just hopefully you started it and we can talk about it. So I picked it up because I was like, I'm going to read it. I'm not going to be that guy that didn't do it a second time. But I couldn't put it down. I read the book and I thought, man, this is what we need in our business. Like most entrepreneur companies, we were at that time 5 employees and about $500,000 in revenue. We couldn't afford to hire an implementer to help us do this EOS thing, which we didn't really quite understand fully yet. And so we tried self-implementing, read the book and tried to get some stuff going. Yeah. And like most MSPs and IT firms, tyranny of the urgent comes in and you just never have a chance to
shift every day, right?
Yeah, it's your days are fragmented all the time. Your schedule never is the same, right? Mm-hmm. And so 4 years later, we finally decided, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to hire an implementer. At that time, we were at about 2.5 million in revenue, 10 to 12 employees. And 5 years later, I left the company because I got really passionate about what EOS had done for us in those 5.5 years. So when I left, the company was going to do about 11.5 million and at 55 employees. Wow. So significant growth in 5.5 years. And I would say the instigator was EOS and implementing EOS in our business. So yeah, I got so passionate about it that I thought, why am I not teaching other companies, especially MSPs, how to get their business better, how to live a better life, run a better business, and not, wake up at 2:00 in the morning with the stressors of like, hey, are my clients being backed up? Or, hey, this person in the office isn't doing their job and I got to let them go, or whatever the case may be, all the issues that we come up and find in not just MSPs, but any business really. But yeah, the MSP space is near and dear to my heart because I've lived it, breathed it, and had those sleepless nights and weekends.
Right. I think that's what, we both share. I came from an MSP, although I was in marketing, I was very closely aligned with the CEO and still today, probably have 3 conversations with him a week and I don't even work with them anymore. So we're still, communicating all the time. But I think that what we have shared in our getting to know one another is just that understanding and really compassion for the MSP founder, the MSP operator, the person who's head down all the time and sometimes may not feel like they're able to even put their head up because of all the work there is to do. And so I think that, if I didn't believe in it, I certainly wouldn't, talk about it again. Like, I don't sell it. I don't do it. We've been talking about it for years, before you were even in this position. But I do believe that sometimes when I know just thinking about my years in an MSP, when a sales consultant or, a coach, a leadership coach or whatever would come in or would get introduced and kind of pitch what they would do, it would almost always end up in somebody comes in, they sit down with the leadership team, we do a couple of meetings and then they leave. And EOS, when you say the word, it kind of falls into the category sometimes or has a tendency to, especially for an MSP founder. And you tell me if I'm wrong. It has a tendency to just, be one of those leadership coaching things that, And then when you experience it, you realize how different it is and how it truly does make this lasting impact and change your business, like you said, from revenue and profitability and accountability. And so let's just dig into the pieces of it, if that's okay. And let's just
Sure.
talk about, let's kind of throw the name EOS out the window if that trips anybody up about another system to implement, because to be quite honest, implementing another, we're doing it all day, every day. It sounds exhausting, right? So I love just kind of taking the name of it, and let's just talk about leaders and their struggles in this space. So what does in your mind and what you've seen, what are some typical struggles that leaders might have that, that need to be fixed in the business? Just kind of some commonalities you're seeing that you saw where you came from. Let's talk about that for just a little bit.
Yeah, I think, with all the clients that I'm working with right now, there's like 5 typical frustrations or issues that keep just popping up, right? One of them is just you feel like you've lost control, like the business is running you and you're not running it. And so you're constantly in a reactive state. You're constantly trying to put out fires. You just you can't get past this one issue, right? It just keeps plaguing you, or maybe multiple ones, right? We say that all entrepreneurs and entrepreneur leaders are dealing with 23 different issues every single day. And so how do we fix those? Understanding how to fix them is one of those issues. The other one is people. It's our biggest expense, right?
Yeah.
Our P&L is high with expenses on people, and they're always the most the hardest thing to
I was going to say, I would argue our biggest expense, both financially and maybe sometimes mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we implemented EOS, I would say a lot, maybe 75 to 80% of my time was people, and it's not all bad, but just people, right? Which is fair. We're not perfect beings. We have fallible tendencies and things that just trip us up. And so we have to deal with those as managers, as leaders.
I'll add to, I always like to say they spend 40 hours a week or more, a lot of times with you. So we owe it to them to make the time for them and to make sure that we're accommodating, as best we can. So I think that's like, to me, at the top of the list for sure.
Yeah. And I think the other couple issues that we see is the easy ones, but hard, right? It's like, hey, I'm not getting the profit I want out of my business, or hey, I'm not getting the revenue that I want. So the business isn't growing as fast as I want or how I want it to grow. And then you just feel like you're stuck. I think there's some people that just hit this ceiling idea of, hey, we've gotten to this point. Everything's been okay up to this point, but I can't seem to move forward. And it can be company-wide, it can be a department, it can be a person that just feels stuck, but you hit the ceiling, and understanding how to break through that ceiling is super important, because you're going to hit the ceiling over and over and over again. So those are kind of the big ones that I see in clients.
Well, and what do you feel like, obviously we have a lot of problems to solve in our business. So is there a way where you come in and kind of diagnose, or do you usually just kind of look across all things? I mean, kind of talk about like like what a frame, because again, when a sales coach comes in, it's for sales, or a leadership coach is kind of more working on the people on the inside. But what would be like a first conversation that you might have if you were to step into an MSP and start to work through some of these big issues?
Yeah. So, with everyone that I'm trying to work with, I spend 90 minutes with them and just kind of show them what it looks like to run a really good business. We believe in EOS that there's 6 key components to a business that need to be strong in order to run a great business. Your vision, your people, the data that you have, the issues you're dealing with, the processes that you may or may not have, and getting traction within the business. And so when I present that 90-minute session, and again, that's a free session that I do with anyone who's interested, I'm showing them what it looks like to run at 80% or actually 100% strong in all 6 of those components. Okay. When I work with clients, I'm trying to get them to about 80% strong in those components, because again, I'm not here to be a lifelong employee of theirs. I'm here to help institute some tools and proven process that they can start using to run their business, and I can step out of their way. I ask a lot of questions in that 90-minute session of just like, what are the things that are tripping you up? What are the things that are keeping you up at night? What are the things that you do really well? What's your long-term big goal for the business? Because sometimes it's in our head, especially with visionaries. They think about it, they know what they want, or maybe they don't. Mm-hmm. And even if they do, it's not always communicated well, and no one in the organization knows it. You can talk to, if you have 50 employees, you can ask all 50 of them, and it may give you 50 different answers. Mm-hmm. So how do we get clarity around what you as an owner or visionary want for the business, and making sure that everyone on the leadership team is on the same page, and then everyone else then gets on the same page as well.
And I think that, especially like being a founder, and I'm a true by the EOS standard, a true visionary, I would say. So kind of bringing in my integrator now, which I'm really excited about. But I see how easy it can be to cast a vision and then let the concerns or issues or work of today always push that vision aside. And so I think that having kind of a concert, like a very intentional time and way to keep that front and center, and then buy-in. So let's talk about that a little bit, because what if you've gone a decade in your MSP and you've never really set the tone, or you've never really cast the vision, and everybody's, you probably are experiencing, a lot of, churn in your employees because people are leaving because you don't have any sort of vision set. They don't know why they're there. But, aside from that, you've got a decade in, and then you all come to the table and start to implement EOS, and you realize there's not alignment, or you realize that you've got two people on your leadership team that aren't bought into what you've decided you want to do. Are you having those kinds of conversations? Because that's tough.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have it with the leadership team always, right? So I'm working with the leadership team, and in the leadership team, we take them through exercises to find out and understand fully what it means to be a right person in the right seat in the organization. The right person typically is someone who's hopefully going to exemplify or hold the same core values as the business. And so I take them through an exercise to figure out what those core values even are. Yeah. Some people already have core values, but sometimes
they're not living.
They're not true core values. They're ambitious, or they're permission to play type of core values, which just means something like integrity. Like we all talk about integrity.
Yeah.
Well, are you hiring people that don't have integrity? Like, so that's just a permission to play. Like you have to have, I'm not hiring thieves and murderers and whatnot. I mean, I'm hiring people that should have some sort of integrity and moral standards, right? If you're hiring people that don't have integrity, then maybe that is a core value of yours that we got to find the right people, because we're not doing it right now. But that being said, when we have the core values set, we can figure out, okay, who are the people that are going to fit our culture like a glove, people that we love to work with, love seeing every single day. And once you understand that, then we can figure out, okay, are they in the right seats? And we look at something we call an accountability chart, defining the roles for everybody, or the seats that are going to be in that accountability chart, in the structure for the business, taking people out for a second and just looking at what does your business need to look like first. Then we start putting people back into those seats to make sure that they align with those seats. Yeah. And sometimes sometimes the leadership team is not it, or the current leadership team isn't it. And sometimes they will self-select, right? We start going through these exercises and we're like, oh no, I don't fit all the core values, or hey, I don't align with the seat that they're asking me to sit in because I don't want to do those things that they're asking me to do. All of those are true or can be true. So I work with the teams and say, okay, let's figure this out. What does this look like? What needs to change? What needs to happen? Let's have the conversation. And then they have to start doing that through the rest of the organization. If I just work with the leadership team and they do nothing else outside of the leadership room, then you're not getting the full benefit of a system that you're trying to put into place. Everyone has to be bought in.
I think this is probably where, and I'm currently self-implementing, which we've discussed, and ready and eager when budget allows to move into this, which I always know. And from everyone that I talked to 10 agency owners yesterday in a mastermind that all said, it's going to pay itself back. Whatever you invest in an implementer pays itself back, pretty quickly. It comes back to you. But one of the things that I see very clearly is that having an implementer allows someone to see things that a leader founder or see or say, things that a leader founder could never say, or may not want to say, or may not be able to see. So I think that I definitely see the value of having that third party kind of come in and do that.
Well, I've heard stories of leadership team members thanking the implementer for saying something against the visionary or the owner, because no one's going to say something to the owner, right? I don't want to lose my job. I'm not going to say something crazy to him. And I, as an implementer, can come in unbiasedly and just say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Right. You tell me if I'm incorrect, or a team, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm seeing this. And they always thank the implementer for thank you for saying something. Yes. We've been wanting to say this for 3 years, and someone else finally came in and said it. Yeah. And then there's alignment, and they're like, okay, either you got to get out of your leadership team's way so that they can do their job well. You've got to let go of the vine so that you can grow. A lot of times it's the owner and visionary that it's holding on too tight and saying, only I can do it right. Well, that doesn't build trust in your team. It is you become a bottleneck. You can't grow the business, and everybody's kind of wondering, well, what am I doing here?
Right, right. That's so good. I kind of, I'm guilty myself of that. So I think that just having that third party come in, really, if you are truly a founder who wants to grow, that's the key. If you want to grow and you're willing to let yourself be taught or let your own, hear truth, about from your team and from others, I think that's great. Now, if you don't want to grow, then maybe this isn't the system for you, right?
And they're not a client of mine. Like literally, that's one of the target market that I work with, of people that are vulnerable and open and honest, and they're more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. If they're in a lifestyle business and everything's great, then there's nothing I can do to help them.
That's right. So, okay. So can we just talk about some examples of success, like where you have seen or heard, with EOS? I've got plenty, I see it's interesting. I'm in we talked about this before, but in our mastermind group with 400 marketing agency owners from around the world, not just the US. And the ones, we celebrate every year who's made it to the 7-figure mark, the multiple 7 figures, the 8 figures. And you see these people who go, like, in a matter of 2 years, they hit their 7 figures, they're up there getting their plaque, and then all of a sudden they're in the 8 figures. Every single one of them are running on EOS. And so it's no secret that this is a success for a lot of different types of businesses. What successes in the MSP world have you seen as a result, kind of some befores and afters, or just any anecdotal stories that you have, just so that if somebody's listening today, they're an MSP owner, have a struggle, they can say, okay, this really does work.
Yeah. I mean, I can even speak just personally when I was in a business running on EOS with, I think it was in the first 3 to 6 months of starting the EOS journey, we utilized a tool we called People Analyzer, which just gives us a kind of black and white view on our people that we had at the time, whether they're the right seat and in the right person, right, for that organization. And we had 2 guys that we knew pretty clearly that they were not, but like most of us, we had fears that if we let them go or made a change there, we were going to have higher ticket count. We were potentially going to lose clients because they're like, well, you let go of this guy, I don't want to work with you guys anymore. Or that person would potentially take clients from us going wherever they were going to go next. So there's all these like head trash type thinking that we had around, what's going to happen if we let this person go. So we went through this process, did the People Analyzer, black and white. These are not the right guys for our organization. And so we made the change. Funny enough, the next day when they were not in the office, the air was a little bit lighter. There was just something about being in the office. And we're like, oh, this is a little different. What we found was that the ticket count actually went down and that's letting go of 2 people. Wow. And I was freaking out. I was like, man, we're going to go from 100 tickets to 200 tickets in a week. And everybody's going to be annoyed and frustrated. We're going to lose people because they're going to be like, I can't do this anymore. All the things, right? But the count went down, and we found that one of them was just a real time suck. So he would go around talking to people over and over again with the same stories, or talking about what they did at home or at the weekends or the night before, whatever. So the guys that he's talking to are not working. He's not working. And then we had another person who was just slow and was like working 1 or 2 tickets when he should have been knocking out 5 or 10. And so again, it goes back to this idea that what's not measured, what gets measured gets done. Not understanding that, if you have the right people, they fit your culture, they are bought in on the vision of the business, you're going to start seeing magic happen in the business. But you have to have the right people in the right seat. If you don't have both, you're not going to grow. You're going to continually be hampered by the person or persons who are not keeping up with your level. Yeah.
I think this to me just says, like, if you're a founder at an MSP, you're listening today, you have to be brave enough to admit that if you want to grow, it takes you having the humility and bravery to allow a system to come in place that might shine, some things back on you and keep yourself accountable. Essentially, if you're a founder who wants to grow, you got to have accountability measures on your own. And I think that's, and that doesn't mean that you're going to be doing a lot more work. It really probably means you're going to be doing less. It's just being able to admit your own shortcomings. And that's just a good message, I think, for a lot of us, because I believe that the MSP world is a make or break. You decide the kind of business you want to have. And if it's one that you want to grow and scale and play golf at some point, 4 days a week or whatever, if that's what you're trying to build, then you can't do it without a system like EOS.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people, when they ask me what I do, I help entrepreneurs and leadership teams get to where they take a vacation without their cell phone and laptop attached to them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are. I mean, I've been
Especially in
guilty of it.
business. Yep, especially in this business. I remember firing a client in the line at Disney World with my 5-year-old at the time. And that's something that I'm not proud of. I don't want to look back on. And I can say that EOS has helped. I can take vacations now. But, again, I want to bring in that implementer soon to really help us take off. But Aaron, if somebody's like listening and they're feeling like this is me, I need to connect with him, where would they reach out to you? How would they find you to have that 90-minute conversation?
Yeah, a couple of ways. I'm on LinkedIn, so you'll see a lot of different posts that I've put on there around EOS and just life in general. So LinkedIn, Aaron Garcia, I'm in the Dallas area. So if you're looking, because I'm sure there's 1,000 Aaron Garcias, but LinkedIn, and then my website is the Aaron or theaarongarcia.com. If you want to spell it out, that'll take you to my microsite and you can submit, questions there. But those are probably the two easiest ways to get a hold of me.
And if somebody's like, before I call Aaron or reach out to him, what should I do? Let's talk about those books again. So you mentioned Get a Grip.
Yeah. So there's two really kind of foundational books. Get a Grip is a novelization of a fictitious company working with someone like myself. The character's name is Alan. He's an implementer. This lady is kind of just out of her, just crazy, frustrated with business. And so it takes you through the first year or two of that company running through EOS. So if you're more of a storyteller or story reader, that's the book for you. Okay. If you're like, I want to know how to do it, or the kind of the nuts and bolts, that's Traction. Yeah, that's Traction. So if you read the book Traction, that'll kind of give you an idea of what EOS is about. I tell people with Traction, when I give my 90-minute session, it's a movie version of the book. So if you're not a big reader of either, say, hey, I just want to know everything about EOS, then I can give you that 90-minute session free of charge again, just your time with you and your leadership team to see if EOS is a thing that makes sense for you. And if it doesn't, now you have the data. But there's a quiz at the first chapter of Traction if you read it. If you don't want to read the whole book, read the first chapter. There's an assessment at the end. Answer those questions and kind of get a gauge of where you're at in the business today. And if you have any questions, then you can come see me for sure.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you, Aaron, so much. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to more conversations about how you help MSPs. I know that we all need all the help we can get. So the EOS is a great way to get folks on track. I appreciate it. And thank you for tuning into the No Girl Scale podcast. If you want to listen to more ways to grow your MSP, we got a lot of resources here. Just hit subscribe and you'll keep getting those delivered to you. Thanks so much.